Welcome back. Recently, a jury found Denver police used excessive force and violated protesters' civil rights back in 2020. Officers used tear gas and fired pepper balls at protesters. Those plaintiffs got $14 million as part of this lawsuit. To dive deeper into this, 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor is joining us in studio this morning. Always good to see you.
It's good to be here in person. Yes.
I know, it's so nice.
Yeah, all right.
So this verdict was sizable. Again, we said $14 million, but the plaintiffs can still be entitled to even further damages, right?
Well, that's correct. So every case comes down to kind of two components. There's legal and equitable damages. So legal damages are basically money. Equitable damages is, for example, an injunction where they say you can't do this or that. So in 2020, the judge who presided over this case actually issued an injunction saying that the police could not engage in certain activities. Then the case went fully to fruition, and we ended on Friday where they got the $14 million money damages. Now the judge, there's other things that the judge is looking at in terms of injunctive relief, saying the city may or may not be able to do this. So that will be issued by the judge in the next few weeks.
Now, the city has kind of indicated that they plan to appeal this as well. What would happen in that case?
Right. So it's interesting because what happens in an appeal is that, let's say, so you win a $14 million judgment against me, and I appeal it. By the time we get to the appeal, if I have no money, you'd be left out. So what they force them to do, or what the law requires, is that they post a bond. And so presumably if the city appeals, it's going to have to post a bond so that the money's there. And then that money, if the plaintiffs ultimately win even on appeal, then they will also get the interest. And the interest is, I think, around 8% right now. It changes depending on the Fed rate. So
with an appeal, though, they won't get the money right away. It's just kind of on pause.
That's exactly right. And this happens fairly frequently, where an appeal will be initiated because nothing gets paid out, nothing happens, the judgment is there, then people settle. Even though they have a judgment, they say, I don't want to go through a year of an appeal.
Right.
The decision could be overturned. It could be remanded, meaning they could have to go to another trial. And this is all somewhat speculative because the city may not appeal. And I haven't looked at the rule recently, but it's 45 days, around 45 days from the date of the judgment that they have to appeal.
I think what's also really interesting is kind of what the city said throughout this, and even after the verdict was out. Talk a little bit about what they said, maybe things that can change down the road that they talked about.
This was an unusual situation where the city actually acknowledged, yes, we could have done things better. If I could summarize, I sensed that they felt completely overwhelmed and weren't necessarily prepared. There wasn't a consistent line of direction. In other words, a lot of officers were left to their own, and so they were just kind of shooting randomly and that type of thing. And let me just mention, because a lot of people are saying, look, the city was destroyed, it looked a mess, and now these protesters are getting this money. But the reality is, this is fundamentally important because we're talking about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and here they asserted First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment issues. And the First Amendment, it related to the ability to petition the government, free speech, the ability to assemble. And what they were saying was that these were the peaceful protesters. And the jury, there was substantial evidence that these folks were not, there were some agitators, for sure. We saw the destruction. And some people are saying, well, wait, our city's been destroyed. But folks have to understand, these are fundamental constitutional principles. So if you're peacefully protesting and somebody, the police use excessive force, that's a violation of your First Amendment right. And so that was the issue, was that these were peaceful protesters, and there was substantial video and things showing that.
It'll be really interesting to see if the city does appeal, and if they do, I think there's a lot of questions with that, and we'll probably bring you back to help us out through that, because this is, I think, an ongoing thing.
And this is the first case of this nature. There were a lot of settlements in Denver and across the country from these protests for similar situations. This was interesting because this one actually went to trial. And so now that there was a sizable verdict, this is definitely, it may not set like legal precedent because it was a trial court, but it will set precedent in policy in terms of what other forces do around the country and that type of thing. This is really giving us some indication of what police can and can't do.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure we're going to be talking to you more about it. Whitney, as always, thanks for coming in.
It's always good to be here.